You are looking at the physical result of a $15 million enterprise capital project. Spinning up machinery of this scale requires a rigorous financial structure. That structure is SAP Investment Management, a specialized operational execution and control engine built to govern the lifecycle of a capital dollar. To see how this engine works, we will trace the exact lifecycle of a specific scenario, constructing a sustainable polypropylene production line. As a capital architect, your primary objective is to build a system that maintains unbroken financial traceability for this investment, from the conceptual portfolio decision down to the statutory balance sheet. You must connect abstract strategic intent on the left to hard transactional limits in the Universal Journal on the right. Bridging this gap requires layering business objects in a strict sequence: appropriation request, investment program, execution measure, asset under construction, and fixed asset. We are going to deduce the exact data model and table relationships required to maintain governance over this $15 million line. Establishing this object architecture creates the audit trail required to verify that a commissioned asset actually complied with its original authorized budget. We start at the IMAR header, the appropriation request. This is the foundational pre-authorization container that captures a business idea before an operational WBS or order even exists. Notice these three variant branches: a retrofit, a new build, and a lease option. These are investment variants. They allow a single request to store competing execution approaches, each holding independent cost assumptions and calculated outputs for net present value and internal rate of return. Decision makers evaluate these variants by applying qualitative risk assessments and strategic priority attributes directly to the data. Once a decision is made, the system status shifts. The rejected branches fade out, and the selected build variant updates to approved. The financial data inside this approved variant is now locked and prepared to map directly into an executable measure. By isolating the theoretical business case from the general ledger, the appropriation request ensures that no actual capital is committed before formal board approval. Next, we map the request into the corporate project using an investment program. This node tree represents the organization's structure, from the group level down to specific plants. These nodes, or program positions, bind the investment to a specific approval year. Watch the approved appropriation request snap directly onto the leaf-level plant node of this hierarchy. This enables bottom-up planning. Requested project estimates roll up through the nodes, aggregating the total capital demand at the root level. Now look at the downward flow. This is top-down budgeting. Corporate leadership authorizes a formal capital ceiling and pushes that budget down, locking in the maximum spend at each level. The system strictly prevents any lower-level budget distribution from exceeding the available limit of its parent node. This separation decouples what the operational business expects an asset to cost from what management legally authorizes it to spend. When the appropriation request converts to a replaced status, an operational execution measure must be generated to capture actual costs. This execution object decision matrix compares the systemic differences between your options: direct acquisition, internal orders, maintenance orders, and WBS elements. For a standalone asset under $500,000 with basic procurement, an internal order provides sufficient control. But our polypropylene line requires a multi-year timeline, complex subcontracting, and multi-asset split capitalization. Those parameters mandate the deployment of a project system WBS element as the execution measure. Selecting the correct execution object now dictates the granularity of procurement controls and capitalization rules for the remainder of the project. Releasing the WBS activates availability control, or AVAC. This formula calculates real-time limits. Available budget equals the released budget minus the sum of actual costs and commitments. Commitments consume budget well before an invoice arrives. A purchase requisition creates a soft encumbrance, while this $2 million purchase order creates a hard encumbrance, deducting directly from the available budget. To manage this, architects configure multi-tier AVAC tolerance limits based on the percentage of the budget used. At 80% consumption, the system issues an informational warning directly to the buyer's screen. If spending hits 90%, it triggers an automated alert notification directly to the project controller. And at 100%, the system executes a hard error and places a posting block on any new purchase orders. Bypassing that block requires a formal budget supplement, which must route through an approval workflow before procurement can resume. ABAC functions as a real-time barrier, physically preventing rogue overspending by blocking purchase orders at the point of entry. We now reach a vital integration point. Through a designated investment profile, the WBS element automatically generates a connected asset under construction master record. These serve two roles. The WBS holds the operational execution data and procurement commitments. The asset under construction acts as a temporary holding pen on the balance sheet for accumulating capital value. At month end, the system runs periodic settlement. Costs flow from the WBS into this filter, labeled capitalization key. This key applies specific accounting rules to dynamically split the expenditures. Capitalizable costs, like freight and installation, flow to the asset under construction on the balance sheet. Non-capitalizable expenditures, like employee training or startup inefficiencies, are settled to cost centers as current period operational expenses on the P&L. This bridge isolates physical project execution from final financial capitalization, keeping the balance sheet statutorily clean during construction. When the physical plant is fully operational, the commissioning phase begins. The WBS status updates to technically complete, and the $15 million balance in the asset under construction is targeted for clearing. That status unlocks the final settlement process, which requires the entire accumulated balance to be cleared from the temporary holding pen. Using percentage rules, the $15 million balance drains to zero, splitting into three fixed asset records: building, machinery, and control system. This initiates the handoff to asset accounting, where depreciation postings commence, mapping a downward curve impacting the P&L over time. The project has successfully transitioned from an active investment measure governed by AVAC into a passive corporate asset governed by statutory depreciation rules. This highlights the true architectural boundary of the system. SAP Investment Management is responsible for the execution, compliance, and settlement of the capital dollar. Once the asset is capitalized, that data feeds into SAP Analytics Cloud for multi-year predictive modeling and broad portfolio simulations. SAP Investment Management is the structural engine guaranteeing an unbroken chain of custody, from a strategic corporate idea to a legally compliant depreciating balance sheet asset.